Okay, good morning. I hope everybody's signed in and got their handouts. I won't be referring to those handouts during the class today, so you don't need to try to keep up with or anything. Those are just some good general information for you guys to take home with you. To kind of like, now what am I supposed to do next? Or how do I do this? Or why? Or, maybe some talking points of when you're talking to other people, some quotes and stuff that you guys can use. So, make sure we all get our handouts, sign in, and then that last form is if you want to do Love from the Oven next year, give me your contact information, and I can forward you what you need, or most of what you need. Okay, so we're here to learn how to start a state and local chapter. We used to just be a state chapter, but we realized that some states are quite large and it's just not really conducive for that. So we, particularly Florida, I learned that if we went from Key West to Pensacola, Florida by car, it would take 16 hours. And you really just can't expect anybody to drive 32 hours to go to a 4-hour meeting. It's not going to happen. So we broke it up into chapters. I know Texas is quite huge. And it's just, if we can make it easier on the people to come, they're more likely to come. So, let's see what we got here. Why do we need state chapters? There's several reasons. It's a long time to the next conference. We got another 362 days into our next conference. And just think of how you're feeling today. So I feel a little tired. I know it's in the morning. But, hopefully you've all had a great time these last couple days. And you've made some connections. You've got some great ideas. You're filling out your takeaway form. You're going to implement it. But it's so easy to leave here on a high going, this is awesome. I'm ready for ministry. You get back to work on Monday or Tuesday or whenever it is you have to be back. And busyness gets in the way. Oh, okay, well, I'll do it next week. And then next week comes next month, and all of a sudden you're here next year, hopefully, and you're back where you were when you started before here. We want to avoid that. So it's just too long for us to be by ourselves. Not everyone can make a national conference. Let's just get down to it. If by the time you pay for conference fee, which is relatively cheap, your plane fare, your hotel, time away from work, it's roughly about $1,000. And there's a lot of churches out there that can't afford that. And there's a lot of people who can't afford it that pay out of pocket. And so we want them to be included. We want this ministry to help as many people as possible, but they just simply can't fly to Huntsville or drive or whatever. It's just not possible for them. You can make an impact in your community. We'll talk a little more about Love from the Oven, but part of your meetings is doing things for the impact, whether you want to organize a feeding or a food drive or Love from the Oven or something like that. Your little community or your little meeting in your community can make an impact and say, hey, this is a community of believers getting together to do this. Instead of it just being Houston's First Baptist Church is doing this, make it a community of believers that's going to be more receptive. You can meet some local leaders. You can have guest speakers, like we have our keynote speakers here at the conference. You can have guest speakers come to your meetings. We've had some pastors from our churches and other churches come to our meetings. We've had the person who's in charge of the public school food program come and speak at our meeting. We've had local salespeople come to our meeting and things like that. So the more you grow in impact, you can attract bigger leaders to come and just, you can pour into them and what a food service ministry is, and they can pour into you and on the impacts that you all can make. It helps the growth of the GACHP. Now, this is not primarily why we do this. I get that. We're not about seeing how big we can get. However, the more people we can get involved in the GACHP, the more we can do, the more churches we can help, and therefore more congregations that we can help. But also, we can have conferences of 200, 300, 400, 500 people. It doesn't have to be here at the 100, 150 part make. And this is a great way to grow the association exponentially. Because if I bring in, if I invite 5 new people in my area to come to the meetings, and they get plugged in, we're meeting regularly, and then somewhere else does 5, and somebody else does 5, and so all of a sudden, instead of growing by 5 or 6 members, we're growing by 25, 30, or 50 new members. And then it's just more people we can reach and whatnot, so more of an impact we can make. So what good do state chapters do? You got to give it a purpose. We can't just show up and hang out. Because after a while, your business administrator going, why are you taking a day off? You're just hanging out? It's just a little social party? No, it's got to be more than that. So let's give it some purpose. Fellowship. We are not created to be alone. You know, as iron sharpens iron. You guys have seen a lot of this week and meeting other people who have similar backgrounds as you, somebody you can talk to. Because before we started doing these conferences, we went around and visited other churches, and you know, you go to 10 hotels and restaurants, they all do things pretty much the same way. You know, slightly different levels of service, but they all do things pretty much the same way. You go to 10 different churches, and you get 10 completely different ways of doing food service. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is, they feel like they're the only ones out there. Often, every time we went, they said, wow, is there another church out there that does food service? They were completely blown away. And we're not designed to be by ourselves. The children's pastor doesn't understand what we do. The music pastor doesn't understand what we do. The head pastor doesn't understand. Well, sometimes in varying degrees, but there's just the uniqueness of our ministry. We can't go out to the restaurants, our friends in restaurants and hotels, and, oh man, I can't believe they're just trying to get it for $2 from us. They don't understand that. You know, so the fellowship is very, very important. Idea exchanges. When we do our local meetings, I tend to have like a question of the day and let everybody speak. Some people dominate the conversation a little more than others, and I try to control that as best as possible. But that's a great way to get some ideas. If you went to Jerry's class yesterday, he talked a lot about how he's gotten ideas from different churches. And so I have not arrived. I do not know everything there is out there, so I learn new things. And so everybody has an opportunity to learn new things. Or maybe you've done it this way for 6 years, you're in a rut. You're thinking, well, what can I do now? I've racked my brain, I can't think of anything. Hey, let me call another church, see how they do it, and you get some ideas. You may not do it the same way that they do, but you can get some inspiration from it and go, okay, if I can do this, but tweak it a little bit, I can do it here. And I know Jerry changed the way he does his Wednesday night dinners, and he actually increased significantly, about 20%, I think, the number of people come to his Wednesday night dinners, and that was including a price change. He couldn't have done that if he was just doing the same old thing over and over. He got ideas from other people and what they were doing. Equipment exchange. Sometimes you have something just laying around in your closets and you're never using it. So why am I keeping this? You can actually give it to somebody else in the ministry instead of just throwing it away. So, but if you don't know anybody in your area, you're not going to do that. So why throw it away in the garbage if there's another ministry that could use it? When we redid our cafe, we had a huge 16-foot counter that we had built. It was in great shape, but it just wasn't part of the remodel. Like, well, I don't want to throw it away, it's ridiculous. And so we called up some other churches, and we found one that was starting a brand new food service ministry, said, hey, it's yours if you want it. You know, they came and picked it up, and they got a whole lot more use out of it than the dumpster would have. Awesome. Recipe swaps. Everybody loves recipes. And it's nice that when you can get together with other churches and say, hey, you know what, this works in my place. You give a nice specific recipe, because there's a lot of recipe books out there. Most of them are written for 4 people, which is really hard to convert. And there's also recipes for 50 and 100 people, but those are more for hotels and maybe not quite the same clientele as what you're doing. I find at my place, they like more of the home style cooking. You know, I can do the French cooking and the other different types of cuisine. So they really get excited about the meatloaf or the mashed potatoes or the barbecue and things like that. So if you've got a good solid recipe that you've used, we're not in competition with each other. You know, if they find another church 40 miles down the road that's giving better food, they're not going to go over there. So they're not your competition. And so exchange something that works good for you, let people know so they can build up their own food service ministries. Community service. We haven't done it in a little while. We're kind of doing some structuring in Florida, but we've done before like turkey drives and Thanksgiving, and trying to implement and trying to help out other churches do things in the community. So again, give your meetings purpose, because people are going to be more involved, they're going to be more committed if they see something coming out of it instead of just, okay, well, I had a fun time, it's neat meeting people. It's got to be a little bit more meat. So when you come up with these, as you progress with your meetings, get a little more in depth, start thinking of ways that you can serve the community as a GACHP local chapter. Okay? So what happens at our meetings? Our goal at GACHP, and hopefully you all have seen it in our literature and everything, is to equip and inspire. So we want to do the same thing at our local meetings. Kind of like make it a little mini conference. You know, give them something to make them feel good. Not per se just to feel good, but to rejuvenate them, because ministry can get hard. You can get beat down. And if you can go somewhere like downstairs in the chapel every morning, we do that to rejuvenate you all, to get you back into to the ministry because we know it's hard. So try to do something like that in your own ministries. I usually just do a short devotional, and then depending on time, and then to equip tangible stuff like the recipe exchanges or the equipment exchanges, or having guest speakers come in and talk about something. Or even what we do is we'll do different classes, like a breakout session, difference between manager and a leader, or how to retain and recruit and retain volunteers and things like that. So try to give them something tangible they can take back with them to start implementing right away. Excuse me. And of course, the devotional I've already talked about. Question of the day. I think this is really one of the most important parts of our meetings. A lot of people just get a lot out of it for several reasons. One, it gives everybody a chance to talk. Everybody wants to brag a little bit about their own ministry, and that's great. But it also just kind of helps you get to know each other, because you sit in a room with 10 or 12 other people who don't really know who they are and what they do and stuff like that, you're not going to open up very well. So if you get to know them a little bit better. So I have a question today, something like, what's the success that you've overcome? Something you had success with this last year. Or what is something you're struggling with? What's new in your ministry? Or what's changing? Or something like that. Or even how do you do your midweek meetings? Or what's your pastor's, what's your church's official view of the food service ministry? For some churches, we couldn't do ministry without it. For some churches, it's just a necessary evil they have to put up with. You can get a lot from these type of questions. It gives everybody a chance to talk about their own ministry, get them to open up, especially those people like me that don't like to talk. But it also just kind of gets you to know the other people a little bit better so you can connect with them better. Excuse me. Networking. Again, part of fellowship is just getting to know the people and getting to see them often. We try to have our meetings in Central Florida every 2 or 3 months. Because we're busy, and sometimes you just have busier seasons than others. But just kind of get with each other and get to know what's going on around you. Lunch, that's my favorite part. We usually have our meetings from 10 to 2, and so we'll have lunch right in the middle of it. It's a great way for you guys to show off on what you can do when you're hosting the meeting. And we try to do a different location each time we have our meeting so other people have that opportunity. Some people don't quite feel comfortable, I can't, but they do just fine. So it's a nice way for you to show off. And also, of course, you all know, food breaks down barriers. A lot of good things happen around the dinner table. Demonstrations. We had for one of our meetings a representative from Swiss Chalet come in. Have you all ever heard of Swiss Chalet? They do a lot of desserts and pastries and stuff like that, more of a European bent. But it's really good stuff. And she came in to show some of her products that were extremely easy to make and set up. I'm talking about stuff that your unskilled here could do and just make look absolutely awesome. And of course, the easier to skill in some of these things are, the little bit pricier it is. But it wasn't that much pricey. But you do those little shot glasses, just pump the stuff in. Anybody can do it, and it looks great. It looks like something you find at a nice hotel dining room or something like that. But it was simple stuff. So think about that. Bring in sales reps, not for the purpose of, they want to talk to you in sales, but they can help you out. They've got some great ideas that may be some easy stuff to do or maybe slightly different than what you're doing, just to make your presentations take it to the next level. Then your congregation goes, wow, look at that, how fancy. And you're sitting there going, if only you knew how easy it was. But your visiting chefs or sales reps can help you with that. Guest speakers. Guest speakers are a really good way to get a lot out of your meetings. Usually there are people who know how to speak. They've got good topics. You can have them pick out a topic that matches what you guys do. But there's more to food service ministry or hospitality than just providing food. You've got management to take care of. You've got bills to take care of, and all these different things. And so some good guest speakers can come and just kind of help clarify some of those things for you. It's like, how do I do that? Well, I can tell you how to do some accounting, but if you really want to learn how to get some accounting done, to get some of your accounting questions answered, ask an accountant. So think about things like that. So guest speakers are a great way to draw people into your meeting. Have it part of the invitation. Hey, we're going to be talking with Bob Smith from the accounting firm or whatever. He's going to come in and tell you how you can track your costs in your ministry so you make sure you're charging enough. Things like that. And that would be a good draw for you. and playing your local service projects like Love 'em from the Oven. Do y'all know what Love 'em from the Oven is?
No.
Nope. Perfect. And we're going to talk about it. Sorry, guys. Love 'em from an Oven came out of Florida, Sarasota, about 5 years ago. And what had happened was he was a bit of a celebrity chef in that area. He actually was on the local news program twice a month, doing little cookie demonstrations. Well, the hospital next to the church was doing stuff for Nurses Appreciation Week, and they said, hey, let's get a bunch of cookies. Let's buy some cookies for all the nurses. So they contacted him and said, would you be willing to make us some cookies? We'll pay you for them. He said, sure, no problem. Figure out how many cookies they need and whatnot. Then a couple weeks later, the hospital came back and said, sorry, we lost our budget. We can't afford to buy cookies from you. He said, that's okay, we'll do it anyway. And it was a hit. A great way to get into the hospital and just share the love of Jesus. And so it is amazing what a tray of cookies can do. And so he did it all. The nurses loved it. They thought it was great. Didn't cost the hospital a dime. He got to go in there and just share the love of Jesus. Well, he told us about it at a chapter meeting, and we thought, this is awesome. So we all committed to do it. 5 or 6 other churches that year decided to try it. What you do is you get some backing from your church, let your pastor know or business administrator and say, hey, I've heard about this great new program where we make cookies for the nurses. We pass them out, and then they just go, wow, this is awesome. And then once you get that approval, you start contacting hospitals and stuff. Usually you contact the head nurse. If you can't get in touch with the head nurse, you talk to like a chaplain or something to help you get in there. Explain what you want to do. Find out how many nurses there are, how many nurses stations. Typically what we do is we'll make trays of 25 cookies, the black plate with a clear lid, and then we'll put a GACHP sticker. You can see it on the back of one of the Love from the Oven things. Our Love from the Oven sticker on there that we can provide you the digital copy of that. You put your own church logo on there with contact information, because it's not going to do any good for somebody in Alaska to hear about First Baptist Orlando. It's not going to work. Then we put a flyer on the inside of there that has all the logos of the companies that donated products and all the church logos. Make them look big. And then we go around, we all meet at the hospital. We'll meet somebody at the hospital, whoever they, a contact person. And then we go around about teams of 5 or 6 people to a different nurses station and deliver the cookies to the nurses, right to them. 5 and 6 people is a good number because it's big enough to attract attention. We wear the same t-shirts. We have Love from the Oven t-shirts. It attracts attention, but it doesn't get in the way because they're still working. And then we just go around to the different stations, and then when we're done, we say thank you very much, and then we come back for the next shift. Some hospitals have 3 shifts a day, some have 2 shifts a day. In Orlando, it's 2 shifts a day. So we go back that evening about 8 o'clock after shift change, and it gets to the night nurses. The night nurses are like, what? These are for us? Because oftentimes, if they get something, it's left over from the daytime. But to go back and make a special trip just for them really makes a huge impact. We don't pass out tracts. We don't evangelize to the nurses. They're still working. We don't know where they are in their level of Christ, on their walk with Christ. We just go there to love them and show appreciation to the nurses and say, we just love what you're doing. We appreciate you. If you can contact the newspapers, local news agencies or something like that, and give them, it would be really neat if we get some media exposure of this, and let them know. This isn't just your church doing it. This is part of a national association, or international association, and we're doing this all over the place. Churches, I think it was 36 churches last year participated all in the same week. So it's not just you doing it, it's something that's huge and growing. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Great. Yes, sir.
Michael, have you ever thought of expanding a little bit? For instance, do a teacher appreciation week?
Well, actually, the first year we did it, we got an abundance of cookies. An abundance. We had so many left over that we decided that we were going to do local fire stations and police stations. And this is kind of where the Love from the Oven is going, not to go into that, but the model for it is, instead of me coordinating and all the other churches doing it, it's just the churches take care of themselves. Well, I think we did 12 hospitals in our very 3-county area that first year, and there's probably hundreds of fire departments and police stations, so there's no way I could coordinate all that. So what we did is we offered out to our congregation and said, get a tray of cookies from us, you know, adopt a local fire station or police station, get a tray of cookie from us or two if it's bigger, and then you go and deliver it. You guys